What's up, Bills Mafia? Fernando Schmude here with your leading the charge. Long time no see. Kind of busy recently with some work stuff, but leading the charge is back, and I have Alex Cullen with me. Alex, welcome to the show, brother. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining me today.
thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Bills Mafia, please hit that like button, subscribe to Rumblings Network channel, support us. And Alex and I will be talking some Bills off season today, state of the roster, and especially this over-optimism, over-pessimism that we can see sometimes from Bills Mafia, right? And Alex, I don't know about you, but tweeting around and interacting with people who I don't know, people who I know, people who I love, people who maybe hates me sometimes, but interacting with everybody. I've been surprised this year by the over optimism, in my opinion, regarding the Bills' moves because the Bills have been pretty good all over the years, but we have some kind of Bills fans that, in their point of view, and it's okay because everybody can think whatever they want, right? But
Yeah,
some people simply can't see Bean or McDermott doing anything wrong ever. Like they are always right. Every move is good. Every decision in game is good, and they're perfect. And
right,
for other people, it's the completely opposite. Like they never get anything right. Every signing is bad. Every decision in game or game plan is bad, right? And it's interesting because some people see me as a hater and other people see me as a homer. So
yeah,
I've been caught in this area, and I'd like to hear from you to start this show today.
yeah.
What are your thoughts about those situations with Bills Mafia and all the Bills moves recently?
So I get kind of the same thing. I end up because I think we're both pretty objective with our opinions. I just see things and I go, okay, I like that or I don't like it. I'm never going to have like an allegiance to a player or a coach or a GM just because I've liked them in the past, right? Because that could always change, right? Over time. Like I'll probably be hated on at some point for saying in 7 or 8 years that Josh Allen should move on and we should replace him, right? Where there'll be fans out there that continually want to do that. And I think that's part of the problem is we all love Josh. I think we all can agree he's at a minimum a top 3 quarterback, probably a top 2 quarterback in the NFL. And he hides a lot of the flaws on this roster, and he did last year again. He continuously changes the way he plays football in order to give our team what it needs and carry it. And last year was a great example of that. And I think that I think fans are way too positive and like way too like reliant or like believing of his ability to continue to do that because eventually he won't do it, because just the natural progression of the league and the transitions within the league where things change year to year, other teams get better, we get worse in certain areas, things like that. For instance, the offense, I think, is one of the things that there's a lot of people that are just like, we're good. We don't need anybody else. We scored 31 points a game. And never mind. I think some of that's from the playoffs too. But there's a problem in that logic because we had a historic, not just historic, like the best ever turnover season in NFL history last year when it comes to fumbles and interceptions. We can't rely on that being just who we are now after what we've seen before that. And we shouldn't rely on that anyway. Even if we had Tom Brady at quarterback, who's incredibly efficient, we can't continue to rely on like, oh, well, we were this last year. We most definitely will be that this year. Right. So I think some of the problem is that people were a little overzealous about the offense. They think that that's done and we don't need to worry about it. I think that's wrong thinking. I'm also think on the defense, they have way too much faith in McDermott just to fill people in spots like cornerback. Like we just get rid of Kyer Elam? Like he's not perfect at developing corners. Like he's good at it clearly because Dane Jackson, Levi Wallace, Christian Benford, these guys he's developed. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like that could run out, and it ran out with Kyer Elam. It could run out again if we get a first-round corner this year. We didn't address it in free agency. I think that was a bad move. I don't think you want players in the secondary coming in and starting for you who are rookies. So
yeah, absolutely, I agree totally, man.
Yeah,
keep going, please.
Oh yeah. So I think that's part of the problem is that we're kind of spoiled in some ways. I just think we're continue to win the division, and I think we still will this year. I think that those Patriots are up, and the Jets and Dolphins have taken a step back considerably. I think it's going to be an easier division this year, maybe the easiest we've had. And that's the first step. Don't get me wrong, but as you see when you get to the playoffs, it's a different game. We play teams like the Ravens. I don't think we should be trying to match up with the Chiefs anymore. I
Yeah.
I think we're right there with them. We just have some bad luck. Whether you think it's bad coaching, I don't know. I think part of the problem was last year we didn't have dogs in the offensive side of the ball to move the ball when we had to have a gotta have it play. And then on, the Ravens are just so big and physical. I just don't see us. We didn't match up well with them in the playoffs. We won, but that was not us winning the game and taking it, and showing them who the better team was. It was we got turnovers like usual, which aren't dependable, repeatable things. You know what I mean? So I think fans a lot of times think that we as a team can do like what I look at when I'm building a team is what can I do over and over and over again with the most consistency, right? That's why I don't like 50-50 ball receivers because it's 50-50. You need
Yeah.
like 65% is like the baseline average in the NFL of where you want to be. 50-50 is not. And at best, maybe it's a little higher because of slants and some comebacks and some hitches and things like that. But overall, those plays aren't the plays they're using him a lot. So having a guy who's just good at that one thing is not something that I see as a repeatable thing. So I don't have a lot of hope for him to develop into this like high-end wide receiver. I just don't see it on tape. So I think people are banking on things that they think will continue to happen that likely will not, like high levels of turnovers on the defense and lack of turnovers on offense. I just think that those things are not something we can bank on going forward. We need players that can actually play that aren't just opportunistic. Like Christian Benford's a great example, right? He's not a big interception guy, but he's just consistent. He's really good. Whether I think we should pay him or not's the other part of this, but I think that those kind of things you can bank on. He's a player, it's a cog in the machine that works. I don't see that in every position on this football team. And I think that we can't just buy into the safeties and the corners that we get or the D tackles that we get and say, oh, that'll fix the problem. Like Ogunjobi is a good player. I think he was out of position in Pittsburgh. I think that's pretty fair to say. But he's not what is going to help us with the Ravens. You know what I mean? Like he's a 3-tech defensive tackle, But I wonder if we're even interested in 1-techs anymore. It doesn't feel like we are, We didn't attack any of them. Daquan Jones is undersized for a 1-tech as well. So I don't know. I know that's long-winded, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, man, a lot of good points. And about the nose tackle, they just brought in Fatu from Cardinals for a visit, and it's not a big name, and we don't even know if he's gonna join the team. But just to be able to see them giving a look at this kind of nose tackle made me happy, because that 330 pound guy who can be a true nose tackle. They always kind of ignore this kind of player in the draft. Even a favorite of mine last draft, Tavonder Sweat, they completely. It seems like he was off radar for them, but it seems like it would be incredibly positive for the entire defense, the way it's built to have this kind of player, because you have Terrell Bernard, an incredible talent at the linebacker, but a smaller one, right? A guy who needs to be kept clean. Milano kind of the same way, despite hooking up a little bit over the years, and Taron playing as that nickel weak side linebacker role. So if you can keep those guys clean, they will fly around and make plays, but you gotta get bigger inside. And Ed Oliver is already undersized, right? So you're gonna pair an undersized 3 technique with an undersized nose tackle as well, and expect your defense to be consistent. I won't say good, because they are good at some areas, just like you said. They were good creating turnovers and making plays, but to be consistently good, to not like you mentioned the start, the game against the Ravens. The start was very good. The first half was really good, but when they came back in the second half and they kind of didn't go the direction in the offense that let's kill them, let's keep scoring. No, they tried to run the ball and keep the lead, and the defense couldn't contain them anymore, right? And thankfully the play by Bernard and those plays kept the game in our hands, but it was closer than should have been, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great example of what the problem is, right? So they came out and they felt disrespected against the Ravens in the first half,
Mm.
and you could feel it. They were telling us we're too small, we're this, we're that. Well, they came out. Your high energy and adrenaline can carry you for a little while, right? But
Mhm.
eventually, in the second half, they ran out of gas. They
Yeah,
couldn't keep holding up because they weren't big enough and strong enough, and
yeah.
then it
It
started
was
to
a
wear on
fact,
them.
right? The
Yeah,
Ravens
exactly.
were in fact bigger, stronger,
Yeah,
right?
they're
And it was a
huge.
fact, right? Yeah.
Like their O linemen are averaging like 300 and like I don't even remember the number. It was like 320 something, which is really high.
Mhm.
Because you have your few guys like they're in 305, 310, that aren't huge maulers, and they've got a bunch of dudes, just dogs that can run over you, like if they can steamroll you. And in the second half, they just said, "We're going to keep pounding on you until you give up." And then they eventually couldn't move anymore. Like there's a good example. I was moving my buddy into his new house the other day, and I'm 43 years old, so I'm not old, but I'm not young, and I'm pretty strong and pretty good shape. I was helping him move a couch, but I moved him for like 14 hours. At the end, him and I needed like some of the old people to help us get it through the door because my biceps were gone, and it
Yeah,
was because it catches up to you, right? And that's a
yeah,
lot of the way it was in that game. Like their muscles and their bodies weren't able to continue to hold up for the whole entire game, and I don't blame them. They're just not big enough. And then I am happy with bringing was it Fetty? Is that his name? And it gave me hope that they do see the problem,
mm,
that they might address it.
mm, mhm.
The last thing you want to do is see them get players that are all over the place and then go, none of these guys fit what I think they need to do. And then I'm like, okay, maybe their game plan is just different than what mine is. And that's okay. But a lot of times, us fans, we don't get enough credit. We can see the problems before they happen, and teams don't fix them sometimes. And you're like, why didn't you do that? Like, why are they paying you to be a GM at that point?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, that's that. I like that signing. I think you're 100% right about like the Ravens game. Like it was, I felt it as soon as the second half opened. They were done.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Bills Mafia, hit that like button, subscribe, help us. The super chat tool is also available. So, Alex, and thinking about this off season, because looking at our team, not just last season, but the last few years, it's been a good team carried by a great quarterback, right?
Yep.
And especially thinking about regular season, and I said it last year. Actually, I have even a screen to share.
Mm-hmm.
Let me open it here. It's about a text that I wrote for Buffalo Rumblings a year ago, May 24th, 24, when everybody was kind of freaking out because, oh, no Hyde anymore, no Poyer, no Trey, Diggs is gone, Morse is gone. We are done, right? And national media saying the Bills lost too much experience and they wouldn't make the playoffs and all those things. People were buying, and I wrote this text about why so pessimistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And giving Bills Mafia reasons why I believe this team would continue to be as good as they've ever been, because several things: the development of players that they've been developing, Sean McDermott's coaching, because I have my Sean McDermott as in the playoffs, but I
Mm-hmm.
have questions about him about as a head coach who can maximize the talent he has in his hands, even if it's not great talent,
Yep.
and make that team competitive in the regular season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I was confident he would still elevate some mediocre talent to good level. I was confident Josh would obviously be a big factor again. And I was confident enough to say they would win 12 games and would win the division, make the playoffs. And then in the playoffs, it would be a different story again. Then we don't know, right?
Right.
So I see people getting too optimistic or maybe feeling disrespected when a guy like me, for example, who really didn't like most of the moves this off season,
Yep.
criticize the moves. They are like, "Oh, come on, it's just March, and we're gonna win the division again. They're gonna make the playoffs." Okay, but at some point, what's our goal? Because I'm not okay when they made the playoffs after 17 years. Man, it was for me like as a Brazilian winning a World Cup. Like
Yeah.
it's a big
That was a big deal. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so it was awesome. But nowadays, I can't expect them to make the
Yeah.
playoffs. I want them to take the next step, make it to the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
And I don't see, man, with the moves they've made this offseason, I don't see the team getting better, taking a step in this direction. It's a lot of ifs. Oh,
Yep.
if this guy takes the next step, if this guy takes the next
Yep.
step. And I feel like they are kind of in the same situation. They lost some old guys again with Yvonne and Cooper, but they replaced them with guys like Hoyt, guys like Palmer, guys that people want to believe they are awesome because of some highlights or because people take their highlights and show what they can do well and say, oh, this guy can be awesome. But
Right.
they haven't been awesome their entire careers, right? For 4
Right.
years, 3 years. They
Yeah.
haven't been awesome. Take the numbers. Take they were free agents for a reason. They
Mhm.
weren't Pro Bowl players, big time players for a reason. They were backups for a reason, even rotation guys for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
people want to believe they're the next big thing for the Bills, and I can't buy in those types. I can't really trust. Maybe one of them can
Mhm.
take the next step.
Yeah.
I even tell people here in Brazil, right now, with everything said and done, I'm thinking Hayden Poyer, the worst thing possible that happened for the Buffalo Bills and Brandon Bean and Sean McDermott, because they are trying to find the next Hayden Poyer, the next guys that were
Yeah.
mediocre and they brought in and became all pros, and
Yep.
it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So how do you see and people getting too satisfied with making the playoffs, being relevant again, but
Mhm.
the Bills kind of stuck in the same area, the same situation?
Yeah. So I think it's all kind of layered in context. If you're looking at my huge issue was that Hoyt and Ogunjobi got suspended immediately, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I never thought Hoyt as being kind of a replacement. I felt more of like he was a really good reinforcement on what we have on the line now, like a really good reserve player, depth player that could actually produce pass rush where, Tuhill did not do that last year. Guys like that we brought in weren't doing it. I think Hoyt's an upgrade to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Joey Bosa. He has another problem, right? He's injured all the time. So then we're like hedging our bet with, I felt like they wanted to hedge their Joey Bosa bet with Hoyt, right? But then Hoyt got suspended. And then now there's no hedge for the Joey Bosa bet. So now I'm like, okay, edge might be in play in round one still. I don't want him to be because I feel like at the end of round one, edge players they end up more like Greg Rousseau than they do like TJ Watt, right? And that's probably a best case scenario. Like Greg Rousseau's a good late first round pick as far as what he's done. Very rarely do you see the Crosbys and the TJ Watts pan out. They're more of a flyer kind of player. They end up just surprising you. Palmer, I think, is an upgrade to Hollins as a player on offense, but not on special teams. But then we lost Cooper as well. I'm not super in favor of bringing Cooper back because I felt like there was some juice left. I'm sorry, the juice was lost. Like he just didn't separate last year. Now he made some good contested catches, some good plays in like running crossers and drags, but he didn't really separate like a really good route runner should at this point. I think he may just be this is who he is now. And I actually think that Palmer can give us that much and maybe more even. I think he's a better separator than Cooper at this stage. However, the reason Cooper worked is because other teams respected him as a player. And they didn't double team him, but they had to show attention to him because of who he was. They won't do that with Palmer. So things will change in that respect too. And then as far as like they brought in Derek Forrest, the safety. I think that's their Poyer Hyde guy, right? Like they might develop him because he had one. I mean, the one thing about Forrest is he did have one great year, as a safety. And Poyer and Hyde didn't have that when they came in. So they're probably looking at him as a round out to the room. I think that they think Rapp and Bishop are going to be the starters. And I think that as Bills Mafia, we just kind of have to accept that that's what they want. I don't think they have any intention to move Rapp out at this point. Like I've heard people say Eamon Wari from South Carolina was going to be a potential late first round. I don't know if he gets there. I also don't know if he's actually going to be able to fill the role we want. He's much more similar as a player, the way he plays, to Bishop in college, where he's much better in the box. He's not a free safety type. You know, he's fast. He's got all the intangibles to be a free safety type. He just never really showed that. So, so I think the safety room's set anyway. I think Forrest was brought in and Hamlin, because Hamlin's like your baseline player of like your floor. And then I think they brought in
everything goes wrong, you have Hamlin. If he's that, okay, I'm okay with him.
Sure.
For cheap, you know. My problem is when they start to give him snaps ahead of Bishop.
Yeah, that scares me. I was not happy about that last year, and I'm not happy that that's a possibility this year. That's why I didn't want him to bring him back. I'm very afraid that he comes in because they love him, and they go, let's make the like. It feels like they want the story to work.
Yeah,
like, we win a Super Bowl and Hamlin gets the interception at the end of the game. He's a starter all year. Like, I feel like that's what they want, and I just hope I don't think that's the case actually, but it scares me because I do wonder if they have some favoritism towards him as well. So, but yeah, like I think at best we came up even here at best, probably a little lower than than last year after free agency. And a lot of it's just because of bodies. If Hoyt and Ogunjobi weren't suspended, I would say we're slightly above last year with our ability to get to the quarterback. Because I think if Bosa is healthy, he's an upgrade on Vaughn. He's younger. He's got more burst and power and things like that still at the stage of his career. So I think a lot of it hinged on that. Like, here's the baseline. I thought we were here, and then we got suspended. We're like right here, right below it. But it's all going to hinge on the draft. They've clearly put their chips into the draft. I think they missed. I watched Bean's presser. I don't know if you saw it. And he made a few comments that I thought were telling to how this free agency. I felt like he was making excuses for Hoyt and Ogunjobi. I think when you heard them speak clearly, I even think Ogunjobi knew. I don't think this was a surprise. I don't. And I think if Bean's trusting that, I don't think he is either. I think that he's selling it to us. And then he knows he missed on some guys. Like, I think he knows it. Like, I think he wish he got more in this free agency period too. And that scares me a little bit.
Yeah, man. Yeah, a lot of good points again. And some I agree, some I kind of disagree. Not that I disagree, but I question, some of those moves. For example, people love to say some stuff like what Sam said here about Cooper, right? His grading low, worse than Diggs, ever Cooper Cup. People bring on some metrics showing how Palmer separates better, right? And just like you said, Cooper, he's Amari Cooper. Like, people kind of respect him because of his name and what he has done, but that's not just advantage. Like, even if he was ineffective most of the time or wasn't separating as he used it to do, I think we can't just go to metrics and advanced stats, and we kind of sometimes trust what we actually see in games and situations. What kind of game was it? And about Cooper, I always bring that Chiefs game regular season win, because the Chiefs were sending the house over Josh Allen and over 0, and kind of saying, you can't beat us, because other people were doing that before. The Texans did it before Cooper arrived, and other teams did it, and the Bills was struggling with that, right? And then Josh threw a ball to Amari Cooper, and he didn't separate, but he made the catch, a contested one, right? And converted a big first down, and okay, the Chiefs kind of had to change matchups. They brought in McDuffie, took over Cooper. So Cooper is already impacting the game when you see the Chiefs taking McDuffie from the slot and bringing him outside to cover Cooper. It's already a change in the game, a change that maybe some metrics will miss, right?
Yeah.
And then in the second half, just again, they sent the house cover 0, and Josh hit Cooper on the right side. On the right side,
he threw it up.
Right?
Yeah, perfect play, perfect throw and
a
catch.
Double move, and Cooper made the play. Cooper had 3 targets that game. He made 2 catches that changed the way the Chiefs wanted to defend the Bills. So
absolutely,
it was a big time impact in that game, and maybe it's missed by some people in situations. Oh, but Cooper struggled in other situations. Okay, but he was extremely important in that game, in this kind of situation. making plays that I don't know if Palmer would make. Like I don't know if he would draw that attention to
Yeah,
begin with. You know,
I
and
agree with
it's
that.
not Cooper doing that. Okay, but then another guy, and then bring on another proven guy, and make some different choices, because I feel the Bills signed too many those 10 million guys, solid
Yeah,
starter material with some potential to be even better, right? But they aren't those guys who made the plays for you in the playoffs. He aren't those
yeah,
guys that McDermott said himself. You need 2 or 3 each side of the ball to
yeah,
win the big games.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I would like to see Bean targeting more the guys that have potential to be those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So even though Bosa has been injured, has struggled, if, and it's a big if, he can stay healthy, he might be one of those guys.
Yeah. Agreed. I love that
Hoy,
swing.
and in Hoy, I don't know, but okay, Hoy is a different piece. Palmer, I don't think Palmer will be this kind of guy, and I respect people who watched the film and believes he can be the man beater, but I'm not comfortable. I watched a lot of Palmer with the Chargers, and I don't know if it was something coming from Justin Herbert, who's a guy who I watch, and I'm kind of like, man, he has the size, he has the tools, he has the arm, but he doesn't have the heart. It's something's missing.
Something's
How
off.
these guys, how he's winning with like Trevor Lawrence throwing 5 interceptions, big time lead, and how he allows this team to lose that game, like
Exactly.
how he loses other games, and we're like, man, no, Josh would never, allow it to happen,
Never. Yeah, he would carry it on his back. He doesn't have that.
Yeah, and then I don't know if it's something from Herbert that translated to Palmer when I watched Palmer, because I always felt like, man, he could have done better, He made a decent play, but man, no yards after catch. He had space. Or, he was fast, but he could be faster. He separated, but he could, it's always like he could have been better,
Yeah.
And that bothers me with Palmer and how much they're paying. And I started to mix with some moves, because, for example, if you take Ogunjobi's money and Palmer's money, you kind of invested 22 million, you know?
Yep.
And then you have a guy, for example, like Jonathan Allen going to the Vikings, or Hargrave, even more veteran guy, but it's about taste. Some people think Allen isn't that good anymore. So pick your favorites, but you have money to sign one of those guys, plug in as a defensive tackle, and a guy that might be one of those difference makers, Palmer and Ogunjobi, it's almost Davante Adams money. I don't want Davante because he's a diva, because this, because that.
He's old, yeah.
Okay, I just bringing some names, so Davante might be a difference maker. He always been, so maybe, And okay, but how about the other position? Man, I'd rather have Davante and trusting Solomon as your defensive end 4, not as a defensive as a starter, but as your 4th defensive end, right? I'd rather give him a chance and have a sure thing at the other position than having 2 mid-tier guys that I know will be good enough in the regular season. People will fall in love with them because Hoyt has a great motor, or Palmer is a nice guy, and they are from Canada. They live near Buffalo, things like that, But they aren't the difference makers we need. They aren't the help that Josh needs, when the game is on the line and Kincaid is dropping passes or digs, or you need the guys to make those plays, man. And I don't see the Bills going after those guys, and it frustrates me,
I agree on a lot of those points. I mean, so first of all, as far as like advanced metrics go, I think there's a subjective component to it that like skews what, like, people use them as like, well, look at the metrics that tells you this, right? Well, we have to pump the brakes a little bit because everybody uses different metrics, right? Like fantasy points has Keon Coleman in the middle of the pack for separation, even though our eyes and every other metric tells us he's awful at it, right?
Yeah.
And so it depends on which one you look at. They did the same thing with Palmer. Palmer he wins routes, but he doesn't separate, which is weird, right? So he's winning on his routes, but he's not actually, his average yards of separation isn't that good per like next gen. But when it comes to fantasy points, they have him in the top 10 for everything. Yeah. So, and I tend to agree with the next gen stats on it. I like Palmer as a player. I don't like the money. if we paid him $8 million, I'd feel a lot better about it, right? I think he's an $8 million player. In Buffalo, sometimes you got to overpay to get guys in the building. Maybe that was it. I don't know at the end of the day, but neither here nor there. I do agree though that like he's not going to probably move the needle that much. He's going to be more of a Mac Hollins replacement for me as an advantage than a Cooper, right? He may be on par with Cooper at this stage of his career, maybe, but he doesn't garner the same attention. And the one thing that bothers me most about Palmer is not that he didn't get a lot of targets and catches, and it's why he didn't get it. Why is he with a rookie Lad McConkey and a first round bust in Quentin Johnston? They still had him as wide receiver 3. Like when he's behind Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, you're kind of like, okay, that makes sense. But when you're behind those two, like they're unknowns. Why didn't Palmer get more targets? Why didn't he get more yards in an offense that should have moved? Now, I get that the Chargers aren't the most proficient passing offense in the league, and now they're leaning more on the run game. But like you would think he'd beat Quentin Johnston at a minimum out, and he didn't beat the targets for Quentin Johnston. So that tells me something about the player. Guys who get open get targets. Like they earn those targets because they're going to get hit there more times than not, and he wasn't getting those. So that scares me about his ability to hit his ceiling that they think is there. My thought more is that he's just a really solid wide receiver 3. You know, like that's probably what he ends up being. And this takes me to my original point too. Like I'm big until we fill this wide receiver room out right. I'm going to be upset because we have a top 2 quarterback. We should continue to make him happy and make things easy on him. Last year, even though we scored so many points, things were not easy. I mean, if you watch the games, there are a lot of struggles, unless we're playing Jacksonville, you know. But there's a lot of times where I'm like, man, this looks too hard. Like it doesn't look like things are flowing, you know. And until we fill the room out and do that, I'm gonna keep pounding the table for one in either round 1 or round 2. I think we need another guy. I think that Laviska Shenault, if he's the wide receiver 5 on this team, we've got a lot of problems. And I wonder if they just brought him in for a camp body, but if they didn't, they think he has a chance to make this team. That bothers me a ton. And then I don't mind if it's in round 2, it doesn't be round 1, but we need another guy with speed. We lack that in this offense. And the guys we brought in, like you're saying, Palmer, I mean, Kincaid, we drafted him in round 1. I think that was another Kyer Elam move where we got desperate. We're like, we wanted one of the receivers and we missed. Let's get him. And then everybody's like, well, this is the guy Allen wanted. Well, I'm sure anybody they told Allen to go get, they were going to get.
Yeah, every year that's the skills, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not.
It's easy to put it on Josh, you know. Nobody's got a question. Like,
oh, Josh wanted Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
I'm like, Josh probably was like, you told him any of 5 or 6 or you could have probably told him any receiver, and you've been like, yeah, I like that guy. I saw highlights of him, you know. So I think that was a miss. I like Kincaid for what he does. He's way too small, and that doesn't just blocking. Size matters when it comes to running routes. When you're playing tight end, you're getting D'd up by physical.
Even at the catch point, right? We can see people breaking up some passes on his hands too easily. Like not strong enough hands, you know.
He can't box anybody out. He doesn't have that. Like he's probably 10 to 15 pounds too light, and he's about an inch or two short. He's not even 6'4". And I like what he does, but I don't want – there's a reason that tight ends don't play slot receivers because they're not slot receivers. They're tight ends. You know what I mean? Like, like I hated when we said that when he got him here. Like, he's our slot receiver. Like, no, we can't just run him out there and, like, say, hey, it is a change of position in some respects, right? He looks like Kelsey when he plays. Like, how he moves is very Kelsey-ish. And I think that fools people into thinking he's Kelsey or can be a young Kelsey. But Kelsey's 15 pounds heavier and 2 inches taller, you know? I mean, that's a big difference, you know, when you're playing that spot. So we're right. We don't have guys who can just, like you saw it in the game, Kansas City game. Like, I know that was a hard catch by Kincaid at the end, but Allen should probably shifted the protection. But regardless, he hit him in the hands with it, and he was having to make a diving catch because no one's open. Like no one's ever open. You see him, he throws. Yeah. Allen's completion percentage was like 63.5 last year. That was amazing for how open our guys were. In my opinion. It's like throwing 75% for a guy who's got open receivers. You know, he made so many throws last year that I'm like, he's layering throws over the shoulder, guys on the guy's back, and the ball's just perfectly placed. And I'm going, he's not throwing picks. And I'm going, this is maybe the best he's ever played, and it's not going to show up on the stat sheet.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, Kincaid is a guy who the pressure is on now, because
yeah,
when you have an off season, a free agency like this, and you can't add guys that might be difference makers. Those guys that they drafted high, the pressure is even higher on those guys, because
yeah,
they are the guys who are supposed to have the potential to take the next step and be the difference makers. Because Palmer, with all the respect in the world, and it's you gotta be too optimistic to believe he will take a next step and become a great player. Like you
yeah.
said, if he's
It's
good
not
wide
happening.
receiver three,
Yeah,
it's good for him. Like,
sure.
because in my opinion, I have him as a wide receiver three that I would like to have better. Just
Yeah,
like what I said, if Gabe Davis is your wide receiver two, you need better than that. I believe if
yeah,
Palmer is your three, you still can upgrade.
yeah,
But and when you talked about separating, and you brought a name that Palmer has been stuck behind, and he's actually still good doing what he does in the situation. He got to separate Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is still a free agent.
yeah,
He
yeah.
was with the Bears last year,
Mhm.
and yeah, he's more of a slot guy, always been, right. But
Sure. Yeah.
Shakir can play a little bit outside. The Bills play a lot of those condensed sets
Yep.
where everybody's in the slot, so
Yep.
you can find ways of taking advantage of having a guy like Keenan Allen. And this guy, despite the age, despite the time he's in the league, that guy is a proven separator.
Yeah. He's a
So, and probably you get for cheap than Palmer, because he hasn't signed it yet. Like Hopkins signed for $5 million. Cooper
yeah.
is still available. Diggs is still available. So I just think the Bills could use it better, that cap space, with some veterans, proven veterans that might not be at their best anymore. And that's why I was in favor of bringing Cooper back, because I
Sure.
know Cooper isn't the prime Amari Cooper, who's a stellar wide receiver stuck in bad teams. But when the ball goes his way, he still finds way to make some plays. So
Yeah.
those guys are the dogs that you mentioned, that we need those guys in the
Sure.
big games.
Yeah.
And you also give opportunities to your young players to show something, because the Bills signed so many mid-tier free agents that sometimes those guys block the young players, and even the new drafted players.
Yeah.
Like Kyle Elam is a bust, all right, and there is no question.
Yeah.
But when he just gave an interview, and he said he was always in the back seat with the Bills, and I can understand what he's saying,
Absolutely.
because if you are a star in college, he was a star in college. He was probably a star in high school. He
Sure.
gets drafted in the first round. He expects to join the team with coaches that trust him, that give him confidence to play well, and he expects to have the first shot at winning
Yeah.
the job, for example. And then you lose the battle to a 6th round pick from Villanova, who was supposed to play basketball and not football.
Yeah.
Like,
think about what they
this.
think about what they did to him, right? They brought him in. They basically made him fight to against the 6th round pick, and granted, Benford's great and he ended up being great, but at the time, we're not talking about Benford now. We're talking about rookie Benford who had to develop. And they basically made an example out of him, put boxing gloves on him while he was on the practice field, which has got to be embarrassing, right? I mean, remember that? They put him in boxing gloves so he couldn't grab. And then they gave his job to the 6th round pick and said, "Oh, he's just better than you," and then made him fight the rest of his career. And then, I mean, he has the really bad clip where he falls on his butt, and you're like, that's why he's gone in the playoffs. But he made some key plays for us at times that I thought were like, oh, he's going to finally get a shot. And they just kept not doing it. They kept, he had a good game against Kansas City 2 years ago and had an interception in the end zone the first drive of the game. And they never went back to him. They never gave him a chance.
Miami in the wild card. Remember, he had a good game in the wild card.
Exactly.
Miami.
Yeah.
But they never allowed him to build on and really build confidence. And so it's awesome for the guy who's a 6th rounder, a 7th rounder, if your coach gives you equal opportunities to the 1st round pick. But it's awful for the 1st round pick.
Yeah.
And the 1st round pick is he was the 1st round pick for a reason. He's supposedly to offer you more, right? So you're gonna lose that guy and make that trade for gaining a guy from the 6th round, I don't know if it's always a good trade to make,
Sure.
And so I can understand the point of view, not making excuses for Elam to failing. Some guys will be able to succeed no matter what. See Josh Allen, for example, right? You can measure the heart, and that's why we make mistakes. I hated Josh Allen pick, right?
I loved it.
I couldn't measure how dedicated he was,
Yeah.
And I was a Lamar Jackson guy. And,
I love
Lamar
too.
Badly. Yeah, I wanted him badly. I wrote about it back in the day for Cover One. But the same thing with Bernard. Why so many people missed it on Bernard, and I was able to be high on Bernard before he was a thing, and it paid out because I was really betting on this guy has what it takes in the film room, in the leadership, in really knowing where he's supposed to be, what's coming and next, and making plays, and that's exactly what makes Bernard a good linebacker, a good leader for the defense, that preparation part of the game, right? And that's why Andy Reid was so awesome to call plays he'd never called before against us, so Bernard would have no idea what would be coming. Right? That battle is awesome, and that's a great part of football.
I think the mental part of the game, like what basically you're saying too, is, and I agree with it, is the mental and like the psyche of the player is actually really, really important. That's why I hate when they don't foster that early on to help them develop, because not giving them, when you lose your confidence, it doesn't matter how great you are, how athletic you are. I played sports in high school, and the worst times were always when my coach would not give me constructive criticism, but give me like visceral criticism, in practice playing point guard, dribbling the ball up the court, and I shoot a three, and he stops practice and tells me, you need to stop shooting threes because you've been cold lately, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want you shooting anymore. And I remember I took my jersey off, and my dad made me go back and apologize. But I took my jersey off and threw it in the court. I was like, I'll quit then. How about that? And then I walked out. But it's doing it to a 21-year-old kid like that. It's not beneficial for him and his development to have those things happen to him, And I do think that him having a fresh start might rejuvenate his career some. I think he has a chance in Dallas. But the other point, you keep making good points. I want to come back to this, is that when you talked about development, and we're banking on players to develop to the next level a lot of times, right? I think we can tell early whether they're going to do that, right? I think that we all can see it. And then we always know when the runway's a little too long. It's like, all right, we're making excuses for the player now. It's year 4. They're not going to do it. We know they're not going to do it, but they keep banking. They don't get a player in here to replace the old player because they're like, Keon Coleman's going to develop into a wide receiver 1, an X receiver, and we know he's not that. And the same thing with Kincaid. It's like, well, we're not going to get any more weapons because we have weapons that will develop and just take a next step. And it's like, not expecting him to gain 15 pounds of muscle over the offseason. I just don't expect it. And I think we do bank on that a lot. The team banks on that a lot too, because they want their investments to pay off. They want to say, I was the guy who found, they want another Josh Allen. Everybody tells you you're not great. But they gave Josh 3 years to do it. Think about it. The first 2 years he was bad and then below average. There were flashes, of course, right? But he was moving up. We could see it, But they're banking on a lot of these guys to do that, and I fear that, because I think you should have contingency plans, and they can't always be had in the draft. Like I hear people talking about the I don't know if you've heard this one. Well, give it till the season starts in September. It doesn't start today, and I'm going, well, the players. The good players
who are you going to add in September, man? Who are you going to add?
The good players are all gone in the first week.
The trade deadline is week 8. In which cap? Because to find a guy like Cooper, 1.8 million cap space, man, it's a heritage. It doesn't happen every day,
It doesn't.
And that's why I'm so critical of some of those moves, because some people get mad when they're not doing anything. But look, the Bills are already a team that has been able at least to be carried by Josh to the big games and almost winning, because obviously Josh has been awesome in those big games as well, right? But at least if you have the cap space, you can make some moves in season. Some people will get disgruntled and want to be traded, and and you might find a good trading season and you have the cap space to make that move. But when you waste all your cap space on mid-tier players, will be keeping that floor level high, but the ceiling is very low, and
Limited.
they won't
Yeah.
make the difference in the big games for you. They will be good to you for win the division, make the playoffs again, but not to beat the Chiefs or beat the Ravens or beat
Eagles.
the Eagles team.
We would have
Like,
lost, by the way.
you
We
know?
would. I'm glad we did. I'm kind of glad. I looked at it and I said, if we would have the Eagles, we would have got our ass kicked. I don't know if we can cuss on this, but we would have got our butt kicked. Because they're like the Ravens. They're big and physical up front on defense and offense. We don't do well with those teams. I know we're a tough team, but we're not an overly large or physical team. So we play those teams. Size matters. They beat up on us.
They always be Josh save us, like
and it's Josh save us.
Yeah, because
that's exactly what happens.
And we aren't even that good at it anymore because our offense now is a run first offense. Wants to pound the rock, and you need that 2-minute offense with some weapons, because when Josh had Diggs, Beasley, gave us a third wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders, man, he had some options to air it out and to make it happen. But now when things go wrong and we need Josh in a 2-minute situation to win the game, we have Josh, but the guys are dropping passes or not separating, just like you said. So it's tough. And those decisions are decisions that they've made to go in that direction, like McDermott and then Brady and being with the team building. So that's why I've been critical, because I believe, okay, they continue to be good. Nice. They signed in Ogunjobi, Hoyt, and Palmer, and okay, they will be a AFC East champion. Playoff, beat the wildcard team. But when we take the best of the best, is this team good enough to compete? No, we need Josh to play his ass off and still not good enough,
Well,
that
I think
frustrates me.
Yeah, that's I think there's two problems too, in that is like, well, I think this year with the competition in the AFC, I do think the Chiefs have taken a little step back. I think the Chargers are fool's gold. I think they're coached well, but I don't think they're a team that we really need to worry about. The AFC East got a little worse. So we're going to believe in this team after wild card weekend. We blow out another wild card team. Like, we're going to believe, right? But you're right. We're putting too much on Josh and a run first team now, supposedly, which is weird to me to think about. Everybody, I know the running game has come back a little bit. Like, we can see it, right? Like, we've got guys like Henry and, Saquon and guys like that are just, they've kind of repositioned themselves as like, this is part of the game again, because teams like Buffalo build their teams small, and then all of a sudden they just run it down your throat. Well, there'll be a pivot back to that, but just because it came back a little bit doesn't mean it's a run first league, right? Passing is still king. And we possibly have the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, we could make an argument for that, even though he doesn't have the Super Bowl yet. But when you have that, like, don't be a run first team. What are we doing? We're not the Chargers, and you know what I mean? Like I don't understand it. And like, they think that that's okay and that's how we can win. But you saw it at the end of the Chiefs game. We couldn't move the ball. We were relying on a tush push twice. It didn't work. Then we were getting blitzed. No one's open. Having to make basically a prayer to Kincaid. And that isn't the first time that's happened. That's happened a couple times during the year where I'm like, oh, when they know we're passing, it's over. Like, they can lock us down, and then Allen has to make perfect throws or run the ball,
Man, in that table offense, like, with the build the way it was, with Diggs playing extremely well, Beasley was still he was hurt actually with his ribs, but he was still a separator who got the first down every time they needed it. And then Gabe, Emmanuel Sanders. So they had the options, and they had Josh comfortably throwing the ball and making plays. And people were totally afraid, sitting deep with their two safeties high. And the problem was, or even against light boxes, our offensive line couldn't open gaps, and we couldn't run the ball against light boxes. I believe with Aaron Cromer and the way our offensive line now is better doing that, we would be able to run the ball against those light boxes with an offense like that. So it's not schematically problem or a philosophical problem. No, it's all about the pieces, and our offensive line wasn't that good back in the day.
Yeah.
And now it is. And Cromer, in my opinion, one of the best coaches overall, pound for pound in the league,
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I feel like they've made some wrong decisions, but they continue to be very good. People are like, oh, they are good because of McDermott, because of being they are good at some stuff, bad at the other. Josh Allen is totally the main reason we are who we
Yeah.
are, And I watch an off season like this so far, and I feel like they gotta draft well, and they
Yeah.
gotta those rookies gotta have an impact early. But the bad thing is, for example, I love Golden. I
Yeah.
believe if Golden is there at 30, I would be mad if they pass that guy, because I
Me
feel,
too.
especially in an offense like they are building, he's
Mhm.
perfect. He has the
Oh
speed
yeah.
to go deep. He can
Good route
gain yards
runner.
after catch. Yeah,
Yep.
he's a
Separator.
perfect
Good
fit,
hands.
right?
He
Then
blocks for his
imagine,
size.
yeah, man. Then imagine having him as a backup to Palmer, or sharing snaps to Palmer, because Palmer is a vet. He knows already how the pro football works. He's not making a transition from college to pro football. He's not making a transition from Texas to Buffalo. So he's
Right.
simply a football player, right? And they can, we know the Bills coaches fall in love with those veterans that can give you solid play and not avoid mistakes, but they
Yeah.
won't give you the big plays. And then you have a rookie not playing enough, sitting behind those guys, or sharing snaps. And when we need those guys ready, they aren't early
Mhm.
most of the time because of this approach. So that's
Yeah. I
why,
think.
man, I feel like the Bills lose opportunities, with veterans that they could take for cheap, and that would be guaranteed a level of play. For Keenan Allen is my main example.
Yep.
You put Keenan Allen against man coverage. He's a better slot, but you use him against man, he will separate. You can't
Yeah.
cover Keenan Allen one-on-one,
Yeah.
right? So he gives you that. He guarantees you that, and then you pay a little bit more maybe for that if necessary. But you trust Solomon to be a defensive end four. If you could trust Terrell Bernard in the second year to take over Tremaine Edmonds' spot in the middle of the
Yep.
defense as a starter, you can trust Solomon to be your defensive end four.
I agree.
And if
I
it
agree with
doesn't
that.
work, you sign a Shaq Lawson from the street, and he'll
Mhm.
give you a floor as a defensive end four who can defend the run, and it wouldn't be we lost and we got eliminated in the playoffs because Shaq Lawson missed a tackle as a defensive end four.
Right.
But trusting too many mid-tier guys and having those mediocre teams that Josh gotta carry them. I
Yep.
go back to your initial point. We've been with Josh playing through a lot of injuries, right? We've been lucky with how he's been able to be tough to
Yep.
survive all those seasons, play the way he plays, and how long they will do that and not give the guy more help, and maybe bet a little bit more on high-end talent and their young players instead of guaranteeing the floor, a good enough floor to make the playoffs, be competitive, but not enough.
We just look at what Burrow and the Chiefs. I mean, not Chiefs. The Bengals did. I mean, the Bengals didn't make the playoffs, but they're a scary team. I don't think we can defend them defensively. And he was like, no, like, I don't think they were going to pay Higgins or Hendrickson. And he said, no, you need to bring both of them back. And I think Burrow knows what's going to happen if he doesn't have one of his receivers for the whole season. He's going to get exposed a little bit as a good player, but not a top 4 player.
Yeah.
And the team said, okay, we'll shell out the money and do it, what you want, because they know they need to keep him happy and so, above all else. And then also that's the best way they can win. Like, they're not going to get better on defense tomorrow by getting rid of Hendrickson and by drafting a couple dudes. And this is a bad free agent class. So they knew they weren't going to get enough better. So what they did, they spent all their money on their own players, and they said, okay, this is our baseline now. Our team is kind of the opposite. They're like, well, Josh can do everything. So let's just keep giving him okay players or scraps in some respects, and he'll piece it together with Matt Collins, and they realized real quick last year that wasn't going to work. So they went and got Cooper. So it gives me a little hope for like maybe a Matthew Golden. But I'll take it back to this. I think Gabe Davis fooled them into thinking that this offense should look like that, where there was nothing easy. Like Gabe was the quintessential, I'll get deep, and because my long speed is okay and I can get in contested catches, but everything underneath is kind of worthless, Like he just has the one thing he does and he just does it, and he's big and he blocks too. And I think it fooled them into thinking like, oh, that's an okay to have a wide receiver too on that tier. And I think now they don't respect after Diggs. I think they just don't respect the position that much, it feels like. And I think that probably in round 1, I don't think they're going to take a receiver. I wish they would, because D tackles can be had later, I think. Edge players aren't great hits at pick 30.
Especially a nose tackle type, right?
Yeah.
Because you have Ed Oliver.
Yeah,
good
exactly.
Or worse, Ed Oliver is your guy at 3 techs, right? So,
like you have a 3 tech. You're not 3 techs are the ones who get drafted high. You're not going to do that. So get Collins in round 2 instead of Grant in round 1. That's not a big drop off. Get Golden first pick instead of getting like Jalen Royals. I made a tweet yesterday about this. Jalen Royals in round 2. And then you're actually coming out ahead. And then, we have corner. That kind of throws a wrench into it, right? That's why I wanted to get a corner so bad, was like, and then when we didn't get one, they went and signed Chenault. And I'm like, oh, shit. They're gonna go after corner and they're gonna avoid receiver now. And it bothers me. And I'm like, ugh. Like, I wish they just would have. I mean, I guess they could still get Asante Samuel, but he's got a weird shoulder issue. I don't know if that'll ever happen. So they got Dane, who's their baseline player, right?
Yeah.
It makes the floor not bad. So, I wish they would do it. I worry that they probably won't. I'd even take Luther Burden at late round 1. Like, I like him.
Yeah.
I know he's fallen down boards a little bit. I like Jaden Higgins from Iowa State a lot. I think he's a good X player, even though he's not a super speedster. But yeah, we'll see what they do. But ultimately, I kind of agree with you. If I had to grade this free agency period based on allocated funds, because I think that's the main egregious point is they spent, I thought, too much for the players they got. So that brings them down the value a lot. I kind of give them a C. It probably would have been a B- or C+ if the guys weren't suspended. Like I said, just above the baseline of where we are now. But now I think we're right below it, based on what we're seeing.
Yeah. No, the suspension and people talking about, it's good because will be fresh, man. And so then why we don't sit guys simply sit during the season, because you will keep them fresh, right? It's
good. That's not a thing.
Zero sense. It's crazy how people make excuses for those dumb mistakes. Like there are no excuses for this kind of thing. And in Hoyt, they said they wanted him badly a year ago, and they put the round 2 tender, and so they knew about it.
Like, you can see it with Hoyt, right? Like, he's big, he's a super athlete, he's fast. At 300, he ran in the 4.6s. That he's 260 something now. He's probably running he looks explosive on tape. I would think he'd be a great situational defensive end that can do a lot of different things, and he can wreck. I don't think he can wreck games, but he can wreck plays. Like he can fly in there and then make chaos ensue. I do think he's that kind of guy, but he's definitely not like a starting defensive end. He's just too much of a little chess piece that can be moved in different spots.
And I'm afraid, Alex, because we've seen that with how awesome Curtis Samuel would be with Joe Brady in our offense, right?
Yeah.
And because he can line up as a running back and he'll be a mismatch. And man, they lined him up twice at running back. He couldn't make the plays, and they never did it anymore. So my fear is this kind of, you sign a guy with a great idea, but they never can make it happen. So that's
how many of those guys do you need too, right? We got Shakir, we've got Curtis Samuel, and now we've got Laviska Shenault. We got a bunch of horizontal players, and then we have a jump ball guy. We got a horizontal team, and then one guy that doesn't get separation, that catches a few jump balls down the field and probably belongs as a big slot, which that's another story. I don't love the idea of big slots anyway. And then we have one guy who can run routes, but it's a wide receiver 3. And it's like there is no stress on the safeties in this team. Like, there's no fear when it comes to playing man against us still. And we're going to continue. If we don't get a speed guy in the draft, where I fear that this offense is going to take a step back, because teams would have figured out, like, oh, this is how we defend all those orbit motions and and bubble screens and the slants and all the small stuff that we do. And then the only thing that really have to worry about is scramble drill Josh, right? When he gets out and it's like guys know what to do. Like that's the number one pass play. And I just think it's going to be a step back if they have to continue down this road of like, we're going to feed James Cook, who's unhappy, and keep throwing horizontally all the time and hoping we get
Josh, do something.
hope we get a bunch of yards after catch with Shakir and Josh make the play, So
man, I totally like for the best signing in my opinion in this free agency was Derek Forrest because he was extremely cheap. This is the kind of move actually I'd like them to search more, because extremely cheap, a guy with the tools to be great, and okay, not overpaying for guys who aren't really what people believe they are. And what make me even more mad is when everybody try to sell it to us that like those guys are the highlight play guys and not who they are overall. I always tell people in Brazil, imagine if the Bills tried to sign Gabe Davis now, and he never played for the Bills. He did what he did, but for another team. People would take that game against the Chiefs in the playoffs and some of his plays and would say, man, this guy would be a beast for Josh. And but we know it's not true.
We saw, though, once he left, that Josh made him. Like, he didn't do anything with Trevor Lawrence.
Man,
he lost his job quick.
1/3 of Josh interceptions were Gabe Davis running wrong routes or not fighting for the ball or not coming back for the ball. And his so
bad catch mechanics. He can't catch the ball. Like he would clap at the ball when I'm like, dude, like, I don't remember who it was. It was another content. I was talking to somebody else it was a content creator. It was a couple years ago about Gabe Davis. And I was like, I'm not kidding you when I say this. He catches the ball worse than I did when I was in 6th grade. He has middle school catch mechanics. And he was like, that's insulting. And that's just, I can't believe you would be so, awful to say something like that. I'm like, I'm not being mean. I don't know who catches like that when the ball comes to him. Like, it's always like you move your position. Even when the ball's low, he's not like doing different stuff with his hands. And I'm going, I can't stand it. I can't watch it. It's not trustworthy at the end of the day. Like, I don't know, but you see that he's not. I mean, he's clearly just a blocking receiver who can get down the field some,
But they would sell him to us if he's signed by the Bills now as a perfect number 2 guy. So that's what I get mad about, because people wanna too much believe those guys will be the absolute best version of themselves as the Bills. And man, I don't know how people forget how Trent Sherfield just needed an opportunity because he was stuck behind Hill and Waddle, and he would be awesome, right? Or like Deontay Hardy in this slot is impossible to cover because he's too quick and a matchup nightmare, right? So we saw a lot of those over the years. So I feel like people are calling me an idiot sometimes when they try to sell me some stuff that, man, sorry, I watched those guys, and they are who they are, like they can be a little bit better, a little bit worse,
but you've seen 4 years you saw 4 years of Palmer now, right? I think we kind of know who he is, right? We don't think he's not going to be he's never going to be Cooper or Diggs. Like, that's his body type, but he's definitely not going to be those players. He's going to be a really good. I think he can be a very good wide receiver 3 if he keeps developing. He's an average 3 right now. And then if he develops, maybe with Josh being his quarterback, he looks better. Maybe he goes to a low end too. I like him better than I do Gabe Davis as a player, because he does easy things that Gabe didn't do. Like, Gabe didn't do a lot of crossers and hitches and like possession balls. So I think that he can provide more of that. But I mean, if their idea is that like he's going to take a step, he's going to be wide receiver 2 and Keon Coleman's wide receiver 1 because he's going to take a step, I got a huge problem with all that. I think that's awful team building when it comes to offense. And if I was Josh, I would have walked in there already and said, dude, like you've got to give me more, this is not going to cut it.
Absolutely, man.
Burrow did it. So Josh has the power to do it,
Alex, I actually have it's obviously just thinking and trying to guess stuff about stuff, but with why Diggs got so unhappy with everything,
Mm-hmm.
He had the contract, he had the targets, or maybe not as before, but he was still wide receiver one.
Yep.
And I really believe he started to be mad about the transition from pass first offense to a run first offense. The transition to less balls, his direction, more run game,
Mm-hmm.
and actually even what does Josh have with it? Josh is too loyal sometimes, and
Sure.
maybe that guy, man. If somebody can say something, that's you, and he's like, no, I'm buying in, and
Yeah.
then he got mad with Josh as well.
Yeah.
I can
Almost.
see that happening with how
Yeah.
his personality is and how
So,
Josh is it, and
so he's almost too much of a team player at times. I think Diggs is part of the problem was what you're saying, like the running game transition. Shakir was getting the gimme the money plays and the playoffs to keep the game going. Diggs wasn't separating. And I think Diggs came to Buffalo, and I think Diggs' impression of Josh Allen is what he made Josh Allen. Like, Josh didn't do anything until I got here. And there's a ton of people on Twitter reiterating that point. And I think he believed that. Because, I mean, what did he say at the end when they said, well, if you were gone, like, Josh will still be a top quarterback? And he's like, are you sure? I think he believed that. And I think that the shine from him had gone away, and Josh became the alpha male in the room, and Diggs didn't like that. And I think this is another piece. I think Josh, when he got there, was really tight with Diggs. And as they progressed in their careers, the 3 or 4 years he was here, I think they grew apart because they're just different. They're different people.
Yeah.
And
personality. Yeah.
Josh gravitated more to Spencer Brown and Dawson Knox and, players like that, and Deion Dawkins, and like his offensive lineman mainly, right? And then Diggs is a loner. Diggs kind of was with Gabe in the receiver room, but he started to veer into his own area. They didn't really have a relationship in the offseason after the first year. And I remember people talking about how Josh did all this work after 2020, but after that, he didn't go do anything in the offseason because he wasn't putting it on film. I think there's part of it that he probably didn't do as much in the offseason anymore in those years.
Yeah.
And I don't think Diggs liked that. And that's my guess, is that he that's what it feels like when I see it. I don't think he hates Josh or anything. I just think that he got jealous of Josh's shine. He thought he made Josh. We know that that's not true now because he's gone. And I think that he thought that they weren't going to win with McDermott. Because
not buying on that
the defensive philosophy. Yep. I think that was part of it as well. And I think he does want to win a Super Bowl. I do. I don't think it's all about the money for Diggs. But he's not signed right now. I think he wants to play in Dallas, but I thought he would have been signed there already. But they haven't signed him.
Yeah.
So
crazy choices by him, and now in a tough situation.
Yeah.
Alex, great talk, man. I really appreciate your taking your time joining me on the show today. Yeah. And the doors are always wide open for you to join me and talk to Bills Mafia here via Buffalo Rumblings Network and Buffalo Rumblings here in the Leading the Chart. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, man. Have me on anytime. Just let me know. Give me some advance notice, and I can make it happen. I appreciate you having me on as well. And thanks, man.
Awesome. Bills Mafia, thank you so much. Hit that like button, subscribe, help us to keep growing the network with Rumblings Network. I'll be back with the Leading the Charge in Portuguese tomorrow to Brazil, and next week we'll be back with the Leading the Charge in English. Thank you so much. Go Bills.
Go Bills.